Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it started with all the weather stuff today, and
Yeah, tornado sirens.
oh my God.
All over downtown at 8 in the morning. I was like, all right, ready to wake up.
I thought I would get a good night's sleep before we shoot today. And like I usually do, I slept really late.
Yeah.
But then I got woken up by the alarm. And I thought, like an idiot, I thought I would get a good night's rest, but I didn't.
It's just so inconvenient because it's like, who goes to bed earlier than 2 a.m.? Like, be so for real. You're not in REM sleep mode until at least 3 in the morning.
Yeah. But I found this weird thing, like, when me and my older sister lived together, she naturally would wake up at like 6 a.m. and I thought that was insane because I would sleep at like 4 or 5. I was like in college and stuff. But now I'm doing this weird thing where I'll sleep as late as I can physically, like 3 or whatever, and I'll still wake up at like 8 or 8:30. Like my body will wake up. That's what was weird about like coming out of the monkey, where immediately like all these things happened one after the other.
It is really weird.
It was like the movie followed us out of the theater.
I thought that we were going to witness a car accident for sure on our drive home.
Well, because it started with what was the Siri voice in the theater randomly shouting?
Yeah. It said, "Can you stop farting?"
Yeah.
It said, let's be clear, "Can you stop fucking farting?"
Yes, yes, you're correct.
Essential, no.
Yeah.
It felt like some people
bit.
use the speech to text to speech thing to like aid in talking.
Yeah.
But first of all, why in an empty like quiet theater? Why that? Yeah, and on top of that, what you heard in the bathroom was like just pure racism coming from that voice.
We go to the bathroom. They go into the women's. I go into the men's, and I hear the Siri voice shout out like, "What's up?" and then like the N word like 7 times, and then it's like broke ass, and then more N words. And it was like the kid was like trying to turn his phone down, so it like slowly, gradually got quieter.
Oh God!
And so then we walk out, and we're like, "I'm telling you guys," and we're like, "What the fuck?" And we turn around, and there's this kid in the window outside. He throws a bucket of popcorn upside down on his head and runs away.
Okay, but from my point of view, when I watched that popcorn massacre, I thought that he tripped and fell because I was still in the mode of thinking that, like, from the movie, because it's all of these accidental deaths. Yeah. I thought he tripped and fell and like cracked his head or something, but no, he's just some stupid teenager that threw his popcorn everywhere. Yeah. I don't understand that because it's like, what, $10 for a bucket of popcorn these days?
You can see it in our TikTok on the ground.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then I get home, there's people across the street screaming, chug, 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 chug.
And they were in weird costumes too.
Yeah.
That was a strange part. Mm-hmm. So he sends us that, and then we get home, and we're just chilling, and I was like, I'm just waiting for whatever the hell is going to happen that we're going to witness next.
Yeah, I know. It's like whenever we are associating with the monkey, things are happening.
But just weird shit was genuinely happening. So I was like, okay, we're going to see something strange, but never happened again. So, But then we had a tornado alert right at the crack of dawn this morning. That was lovely. Welcome to North Carolina.
It means 8:30 a.m.
Yeah. That is early. The ass crack of dawn for me.
For me as well.
Honest.
I go to bed at 3 or 4 a.m.
Yeah.
That was intense.
But yeah.
But it was a great movie.
10 out of 10. Yeah.
Final Girl approved.
Final Girl
approved and worshipped, honestly.
And worshipped. Very much worshipping.
Follow us on TikTok, guys.
Yes. We're going to wind up that monkey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, follow us on TikTok also for timely film reviews, like movies that just came out. We'll give you our feedback. Like, this is worth seeing.
And maybe some oldies.
Classics.
Hi, my name is Becky.
Hi, my name is Sahiti.
And you're listening to another episode of Final Girls Guide. Today we're talking about Slashstick Comedy, horror comedy.
Tongue twister.
All right, so we saw The Monkey this last weekend. Thoughts?
Amazing movie. 10 out of
It's
10.
so good, dude.
It's like we've seen a couple movies together in theaters.
Yeah.
Horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie just checked all the boxes for me, for both of us.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in a long time that I left the theater with no notes.
Yeah,
You know?
I don't think either of us left without any slight giddy feeling.
Yeah.
Like we were like little kids.
Yeah.
We were laughing so hard. I don't think I've heard the both of us laugh at something
Yeah.
for so long.
Yeah.
I was like crying laughing at that
Yeah.
movie.
Oh my God. I was still laughing at the where he gives the handshake and then
Yes.
like swishes off into his hair.
Are we saying Theo James should be nominated for Best Actor and Best Supporting because he
Supporting?
plays two characters in that movie?
Hey,
And he kills it.
I know, and I miss being obsessed with Theo James.
I know. As we discussed in the car ride, I don't know much about Theo. And
Yeah.
my dude's cool. I liked him on White Lotus. I wasn't really a big Divergent kid.
Mhm.
Like, after Hunger Games, I was kind of like, okay, if we have another, like, dystopian thing, whatever.
Yeah.
But he's excellent. And his narrating voice for Stephen King books is so on point to what's written from the material that it really brought us into the universe of the monkey.
Yeah. And I do appreciate, as a horror comedy, obviously, like, there's the usual suspension of belief or suspension of disbelief. Yeah. So I think what we talked about was also that it's such a great, grounded father-son movie,
It is.
which works so well for the genre and for like the backstory and for the trauma, the internal, external, all of that, the conflicts throughout the movie. But it still was so funny at every single scene was funny, and it didn't go too overboard. It didn't, it was a good mix of everything.
Best death? Question mark?
You want to start us off? Because I have no idea what your pick is, actually.
If I'm being honest, I really loved the first death. I think it did. Yeah, it's a harpoon death, which pierces someone's intestines, and we think that's where it ends, but then the harpoon retracts, if that's the word, and pulls the intestines out.
Spencer's.
Can I just say, we can add this before I start talking, but trigger warning.
Yes.
I'm gonna be talking about some graphic stuff.
It's a very graphic movie.
Yeah.
Spencer's reaction to that moment, remember? He says so loudly.
When it goes in, just stabs him.
Yeah.
No, what you said was you were like, oh, he could make it out of that.
He'll be fine.
He'll be
survive
fine.
that.
Because
Just a minor surgery.
the way they paced that or killing, I guess, or not. It's not a murder. It's,
not a
just a
murder.
death.
Yeah.
It's accidental.
Yeah.
But
Like life.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Like all the deaths
yeah,
in the movie.
the way they paced it was he's just standing there for a moment with this harpoon, and it's like, all right, that doesn't look too bad, but you're right. Then the retraction happens.
It was perfectly timed to the moment I was like, he can survive that.
Yeah.
And immediately goes back.
Spencer was just like,
Yeah. It's like, oh, I can't see this. I can't.
Covered my
Yeah.
eyes the whole movie.
Yeah.
If you're
The whole
squeamish,
movie.
This movie is...
For
It's a tough
you.
watch.
No, I'm just
yeah, whenever
kidding.
Becky and Sahiti were laughing, I knew to look away.
That's true. That's true. Because, like, honestly, a lot of, like, slasher, it's not that I'm uncomfortable watching, but, like, it's funny to me. Because
Me
it's
too.
more, like, I immediately think of, like, the effects or, like, shooting the scene or, like, the behind the scenes
Yeah.
part of it and how funny it is to, like, be filming something like that.
exactly.
But yeah, as a scene, as a death, I think it was a great, like it set me up for like what the rest of the movie is gonna be.
Exactly.
But what was your favorite death?
So I just found this. I mean, all of them are so absurd and
Yeah.
off the walls, like accidental deaths. But my favorite, and I wouldn't say it's a totally unique approach to it, but the way that they set it up was really fun. But there's a quick glimpse at like a bunch of deaths that have happened in the town.
Mhm.
And one of them is a guy that, let's just say, his lawnmower ate that day. That's all I'm gonna.
Nice.
That's the only way to really explain it.
Yeah.
And the lawnmower is spewing his guts everywhere. His neighbor is next door looking by, doing yard work as well, and he witnesses his neighbor go the way he does, and he is just sipping on a beer and gets sprayed with guts. And right when you think he's gonna like freak out and run off, he just
Takes a sip of
continues to
his
sip
beer.
his beer like it's another Tuesday.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
Honorary mention to the swimmer.
Oh, the pool death was really cool. I know it's a top, because I've been binging on TikTok and other things, everyone's favorite deaths from the movie since we watched it, but the pool death was beautifully shot.
Yeah.
And, you know, when her leg has its moment,
Yeah.
I think I was really surprised.
Yeah. I think because, well, the movie, another thing that it did so well is that the tension is building for
Yeah.
that scene, for the pool scene. We know something's going to happen. We know Theo James's character is not going to die immediately,
Mm-hmm.
even though that's what it's trying to hint at. But even though we know it's coming, we're still like shocked when the death actually happens.
Yes.
And that happens throughout the entire movie. Like the scene where the two brothers are together
Mhm.
and they are okay. The scene where the two brothers are together and he like wants to drop a bowling ball or something on his face.
Oh my god.
It's crazy.
And then they show, I didn't think they'd show what those little boys would look like if they were to die. And they don't
Yeah.
die,
Mm.
but like it's like what he imagines
Yeah.
would happen to his brother.
Yeah.
But they're like little kids and they just show a little kid's face smashed
I
in.
know.
I was shook.
Yeah.
I was shook.
Yeah, go ahead. The weird one where I actually felt like, did we need that or not? Not
Mhm.
that it's too gory or anything, it's slasher, was the horse stampede one. It was like, oh, okay.
And that was Oz Perkins
Yeah.
or Osgood Perkins. I've seen it spelled both ways.
Yeah.
But the director's
director.
cameo
Yeah.
was as the uncle.
The uncle. Yeah. Which was, it was a really funny death.
Yeah,
for sure.
it was, but
But
it literally looked like pasta
yeah.
when they unzip the sleeping bag. There's nothing left of him.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So do you guys think the over-the-top deaths make it funnier, or does it take away from the horror aspect at all?
No, it's
No.
amazing. It's so much funnier because if you're gonna do comedy, I feel like you have to be absurd. I mean, there's this old movie that I feel like is the first horror comedy. It's called When Abbott and Costello
Mm.
or Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein Werewolf, I think. And
40s
Dracula.
or something?
And Dracula.
Mm.
It's so like it's like a classic Universal movie. But that movie, they play it really straight for the scary scenes.
Mhm.
But then everything around it is just hysterical. And I felt very similarly with this one. Yes, it's over the top deaths, but it is still a little scary because like they're not shying away at all from showing as much gore as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that especially with horror comedies, the absurdity of the death sometimes is the horror. A lot of horror comedies bring in the mass audience or like
Yeah.
the mainstream audience who
Yeah.
are not comfortable with horror. And so the absurdity is kind of like it keeps them at peace with the deaths,
Exactly.
not making them too grotesque or like too realistic or like things like
Yeah.
that, which I think is necessary in horror comedies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think for me, the horror part, like where they were showing the monkey and
Yeah.
like, you know, it following them everywhere or, you know, there wasn't a lot of actual like I would say there's no like supernatural element or like the
It's
diving into the
over-explained, and I
backstory.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why comedy I feel is such a great method of delivering horror, because you don't need to do the world building. I mean, you
Yeah.
do need to a little bit, but everyone understands that the more ridiculous it is, the more funny it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although it is interesting, it's a lot of household objects that are used as the weapons. I mean, like, I don't want to spoil it too much since it's in theaters, but the aunt's death.
Oh my god.
I mean, one wrong slip up, I guess that could happen.
Yep.
So wouldn't want to mess with that. And then, you know what I thought they were gonna have is, I can't remember what the movie was. It's like this random horror movie that came out years ago that a lady gets her hand stuck in the trash disposal part of a sink, but it's like an aunt or something of the character. I remember that much, but I remember she gets like her hair or something stuck in the trash disposal.
Oh.
And I was waiting for that death, but I'm glad they didn't do that because it's been done before, clearly.
Yeah.
But those sort of things do stick with me a little bit because I'm like, definitely not going to go camping anytime soon, so I don't get trampled by a flock of wild horses.
Yeah. That's true.
So do you guys think the comedy helps elevate or relieve the tension in the film at all?
Relieve the tension.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I think that, like what you were saying about bringing in mainstream audiences that may not always be the first ones in line to horror movies, I think that it helps them stay in the seats, because if you're not a big fan of horror, I feel like horror comedy is a great gateway, gateway drug into that realm, because, like, yes, you're really scared, but people love to laugh if you can actually get them to do it. And while comedy, same with horror, but comedy is one of the hardest genres to pull off, because making people actually laugh is one of the most difficult jobs ever. But if you have a script like they use for The Monkey, people are going to be busting their asses off laughing. So if they're getting that energy out, it's kind of like, I don't know if it's like, if there's any psychology behind it, but it's kind of evening out the anxiety you're feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, personally, I am a big nervous laugher. If anytime I go to a haunted house or something, I am the one a-hole or asshole in line that's just laughing their ass off, because not because I think their performances are funny, but because that's how I react to weird situations. Yeah. So it helps relieve the tension for me in those situations. So I would imagine it's the same for horror comedy.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think I do the same. There's very few instances, we'll talk about this in a future episode, where I'm fully terrified.
Same.
And I know that it doesn't happen in slashers for me, but just the fact that the comedy is on purpose.
Yes.
It creates
helps.
for a much better experience in the theater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same with like drama comedies or dramedies like Succession.
Mm-hmm.
Succession, I don't know if fantastic show. I love that show. I don't know if it'd rope in the numbers the way it does or did if it didn't have those comedic elements where they're doing so much improv and like doing so many absurd things that it's like, how can you even imagine these characters as real people? Yeah. You know, so kind of different things when you mesh comedy into a genre. I think it's always to relieve whatever that tension is.
Mm-hmm. I think going off that, Jamo actually brought this up. Does the comedy in it make the horror even more terrifying, and does the horror make the comedy even more funny?
I think it depends on the movie.
Yeah. And I think that I don't think the comedy has as much of an effect on horror because you're still expecting it.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like when a horror comedy is done well, you're not expecting the comedy. Even if you know that
Exactly.
it's a comedy, you
Exactly.
don't know when.
You're still going into it thinking it's a horror movie.
Yeah. And so there, I think maybe, I mean, comedy has a bit of a leg up because
Me too.
it can, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, basically, I think that when, especially in a slasher, when you know that it's a slasher, even if you don't know it's a slasher, after the first scene, like in The Monkey, the opening scene, you're set for those scenes.
Well, it's even in the original Halloween. The teenagers are so funny.
Yeah.
But it's very natural. I wouldn't label Halloween as anything but a horror movie or a slasher film. It's not a comedy, but it has those elements, and most horror movies do tend to have comedic elements because it helps relieve the tension. I think it really just depends, though, mainly on the filmmaker themselves.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of a dry response, but I don't think every filmmaker can properly pull off a horror comedy.
Yeah.
I don't think every filmmaker can pull off a horror drama. It really has to be up to your own artistic vision and what's unique about your style.
Yeah.
Because I think you see that right away in horror comedies. Like in The Monkey, I watched Long Legs, and I saw a lot of his style in that one. But this one, I was like, okay, now I really know what Osgood Perkins' style is as a director.
So going off all that, what would be your favorite comedy horror films?
Ooh.
You want to go first?
Okay. My favorite comedy horror film is going to be Jennifer's Body.
Great movie.
The crowd is cheering.
Yes.
The crowd is doing backflips.
Exactly. You know, that movie, I remember as a kid when I first was looking at it, and I feel bad about I feel like as little kids, especially little girls in the early to mid 2000s, there was a lot of weird portrayal of feminism put on us, where it was no, you can't be super girly, you can't be over the top, you're not a real feminist if you're doing that, when that idea is so warped. It's accepting you're feminine and it's just wanting equality. But as a kid, I was I saw Jennifer's Body posters everywhere, and I was like, that's not my kind of movie, whatever. Then I get to high school and I finally sat down and watched Jennifer's Body for the first time completely on my own, and I just fell in love with it. The promotion for that movie was not what it should have been. I mean, Megan Fox is super hot in it, can't lie. I mean, it's Megan Fox.
Yeah.
But there's such a deeper message. It's so much more about female friendship. There's even kind of a play at they do, Amanda Seyfried and Megan Fox's characters do kiss, but there's so many themes about what it is to be a woman and to come into your own that come behind that movie. So the movie's about Jennifer, and she's growing up in this small town. She's this hot, cool girl. All the guys are in love with her. Her friend Needy is just always going to do whatever Jennifer says. So Jennifer and Needy go to this concert, and it's for this shitty indie boy band. You know, the only people that were making music in the early 2000s. So there's a fire that breaks out at the music venue, and they go to escape, and Jennifer goes with the boy band. Well, the boy band tries to sacrifice Jennifer so that they can work with this god that's going to give them fame and everything if they sacrifice a virgin. My girl Jennifer is not a virgin. She's I'm not even a backdoor virgin, which is one of my favorite lines from the movie. But because she isn't an actual virgin, she turns into a succubus. And I mean, the rest of the movie is basically she's eating boys, and Needy has to figure out on her journey who she is and what she's going to do to try to save her friend Jennifer, which in the end, she's not really able to be saved anymore. But I think that film, it's hysterical. I mean, there's so many iconic lines that I can think of from the movie. So the writing for the movie is brilliant, and it does sound like stuff that teenagers would actually say. And then on top of that, like what it's saying about women, Jennifer is like very confident in who she is, but it's like men are always trying to strip away that identity and being okay with your sexuality, being okay with who you are as a person. And I think they portrayed that in a way that I wish marketing would have carried through more on that. But I think because that movie came out in the early 2000s rather than now, people were scared to market things other than just the really hot leading lady when the movie is so much deeper than that.
Sahiti, what about you?
Ooh, so my pick is an Indian movie called Stree, which means woman.
Ooh.
It is, when I was thinking of horror comedies, it's the first thing that came to mind, and I really like that movie. Not because I have like a lot of opinions about like horror comedy in India and stuff, but I think Stree really like opened the doors to the mass audience and mainstream audience to consume horror, again, in like a palatable way through comedy. And the story basically revolves around this like folklore demon called the Naleba. I hope I'm saying that right. But this Naleba takes the form of a woman who calls out to men in the dark at night.
So kind of a succubus situation going on for you too.
Kind of.
Okay.
But there's no, I think there's more of like a, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's more of like a seductive aspect to succubus.
Yes, there is.
Which
That's not
Naleba
in
doesn't
this
have.
movie.
No.
Okay.
It's more of like a, yes, it is enticing, but there's no like...
Physical form?
There is a physical form.
Okay.
But it has more of like a, there's just killing. That's the only goal. But yeah, it revolves around Vicky, who is a women's tailor, and he meets, there's a religious festival coming up, and he meets this beautiful woman. And the story revolves around him falling for her and his friends trying to reveal to him that this woman is not all that she seems. And so the only way to make sure that Stree doesn't capture the men at night is to write outside your house, "O Stree kal aana," which means come tomorrow. And so she'll keep reading that, and she'll come the next night over the few nights of this religious festival. And yeah, I just think that I appreciate Stree for what it did to open the doors to horror comedy, because there's also a huge universe now that they've created, like a cinematic universe with different mythological creatures from different states. And, you know, there's so much that we can do with Indian mythology and folklore in horror that I think a lot of audiences won't necessarily go for. And I think that's the same problem here. Although a lot more people consume horror in the West, it's still like when I ask people what's their favorite horror movie in India, there's one name that comes up, and it's Tumbad, which is a great movie, but not. It's not. There could be more, and I think
basic bitch shit.
Yeah, no, not even basic bitch shit. It's just like the horror part of it comes at the end.
Oh, okay.
There's like a huge build up. It's like a lot of like context, and it's very slow burn. But I think Stree, I'm hopeful for the Indian horror comedy
future.
industry with Stree.
So really quick, before we end, why do you two think horror and comedy blend so well?
Opposites attract.
Yeah. I mean, horror and comedy, they say, are the hardest genres to pull off. Because psychologically, like I alluded to earlier, it's really hard to get people to laugh. And as we've seen, it's actually a lot harder than people realize to scare people. So, especially if you're going into a movie and you know, okay, this is a comedy, it's supposed to make me laugh. This is a horror movie, it's going to scare me. You're going to, for some reason, work against that, like reverse psychology.
Yeah.
So you don't laugh, you don't get scared. And you try to brave through it. And when it's done well, it works.
Yeah.
Just like, I guess, a little honorable mention. An American Werewolf in London, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I really feel like that's one of the movies that amped it up
Yeah.
to have these sort of more serious, or I guess cinematic. All films are cinematic, and I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
But there's this trendy word, and I kind of disagree. I go back and forth with it. But people were calling, like, after Get Out came out, there's, like, smart horror. I feel like An American Werewolf in London, and I mean, it was nominated. I know it won Best Special Effects, but it was nominated for a bunch of awards. But what it did in that, where the scary moments really freak you out.
Yeah.
But then when he's, like, talking to his friend, it is, like, the darkest humor, but it works so well. And he's talking to all these people he's killed, but they're so funny because they're, like, basically, fuck you, man.
Yeah. And I think that's why we also see the new genre. I mean, it's not a new genre, but zomcoms.
Yeah.
Because zombie movies do so well with
Zombieland.
comedy. Yeah, Zombieland.
So funny.
The second one. And then there's so many other where it's become its own genre because comedy does so well in putting people at ease, but also, you know, adding the horror elements in a palatable way.
Like, amping it up.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. This was another episode of Final Girls Guide. My name is Becky.
And my name is Sahiti. Stay alive till next time.